MAGA Republican governor of South Dakota and infamous dog killer, Kristi Noem, has been tapped by Donald Trump to be his Homeland Security Secretary in the second Trump administration, and we have to talk about it. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we got a couple of clips to look at here, and I should note the irony, given that Kristi Noem really surged into the national spotlight when she was under consideration to be Donald Trump's running mate before he ultimately went with J.D. Vance. The thing that put her in the spotlight, even though she is a Republican governor, is the fact that she revealed during an autobiography that she shot her child's dog. She shot and killed her dog, Cricket. This, of course, went viral. People lampooned Kristi Noem. It became the subject of viral discussion. It dominated every conversation she had with any media outlet, including Fox News, and we're going to play some clips as a reminder. The irony about this is I actually just got a dog. My girlfriend and I just got a dog. If you check out my community notes, we have a miniature schnauzer here, so got to plug its ears right now because if you say Kristi Noem too loudly, the dog will bark and run out of the room in terror, as well people should. But yeah, the awful Trump cabinet picks continue. We have Susie Wiles is going to be chief of staff. You have Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. You have Tom Homan, this ruthless, brutal, nutcase. He's going to be the border czar. You've got Stephen Miller, who's going to be Deputy Chief of Staff. And now Kristi Noem going to be the Homeland Security Secretary. Trump has selected Kristi Noem as his Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, according to two people familiar with the selection. Noem will be tapped to take over the agency as two key immigration hardliners, Stephen Miller and Tom Homan, are slated to serve in senior roles, signaling Trump is serious about his promise to crack down on his immigration pledges. With his selection of Noem, Trump is ensuring a loyalist will head an agency he prioritizes and that is key to his domestic agenda. The department saw an immense amount of turmoil the last time Trump was in office. Then DHS had 5 different leaders, only 2 of whom were Senate confirmed. The agency has a $60 billion budget and hundreds of thousands of employees. Noem, who was previously a South Dakota representative, will now be tasked with overseeing a sprawling agency that oversees everything from U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Immigration and Custom Enforcement, ICE, to the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the U.S. Secret Service. Noem had once been on Trump's shortlist for vice president, though her relationship with Trump shifted after the negative rollout surrounding the publication of her book, No Going Back, The Truth on What's Wrong with Politics and How We Move America Forward. In it, she revealed that she once killed her 14-month-old wire hair pointer, Cricket, when she was not displaying the signs of an ideal hunting dog. So again, that's what she went viral for. She also went viral before, by the way, lying about having met North Korean autocrat Kim Jong-un. We'll play some clips actually right now as a reminder, just to remind you of who Kristi Noem is. This woman is about to become one of the most powerful people in the country, the head of the Department of Homeland Security. Let's start with this one. She doesn't know her history very well.
Texas and those 13 original colonies would have never signed the treaty that formed the first Constitution of the United States if they didn't think that their right to protect themselves and defend their own people was protected.
So, bit of trivia. Texas was not one of the 13 colonies that signed onto the Constitution. They just weren't. So yeah, that doesn't bode well. What else we got? Well, let's talk about, again, that supposed encounter that Kristi Noem said happened between her and Kim Jong-un. She looked him in the eye. She intimidated him. She flexed on him. Turns out it's not true, and she actually had to edit it out of subsequent iterations and publications of her autobiography. But she was raked over the coals for it and did not, withstand the scrutiny particularly well.
Talk about meeting some world leaders, and one specific one. Quote, I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, I'm sure he underestimated me, having no clue about my experience staring down little tyrants. I've been a children's pastor after all. Did you meet Kim Jong-un?
Well, as soon as this was brought to my attention, I certainly made some changes and looked at this passage. And I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. As soon as it was brought to my attention, we went forward and have made some edits. So I'm glad that this book is being released in a couple of days, and that those edits will be in place, and that people will have the updated version.
So you did not meet with Kim Jong-un. That's what you're saying.
I've met with many, many world leaders. I've traveled around the world. I think I've talked extensively in this book about my time serving in Congress, my time as governor, before governor, some of the travels that I've had. I'm not going to talk about my specific meetings with world leaders. I'm just not going to do that. This anecdote shouldn't have been in the book, and as soon as it was brought to my attention, I made sure that was adjusted. So.
But you wrote the book. It was your book. You wrote it. You put it in there. You put in the anecdote that was not true, but then you say when the anecdote was brought to your attention, you had it removed. Well, wasn't it brought to your attention when you wrote it yourself? Future Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. That right there doesn't seem to be winning points on character, on integrity, on truthfulness, on fidelity. Well, that's bad. That's bad, you think. Well, okay, sure, she doesn't know her history. Sure, she doesn't know, apparently, her own personal history about who she has and hasn't met and what she did and did not write. Okay, well, what about cricket? Okay, what about that scandal? As bad as that was, what was made worse was how she handled it. Like, she took a bad situation. Here's the problem with Kristi Noem and why I have serious questions about her competence to really lead anything. A state, Department of Homeland Security, a lemonade stand, really anything involving the public or any sort of public-facing organization, was her taking a bad situation and making it so much worse. So this was her reaction. We're going to play a couple of clips on this. Her reaction to Stuart Varney of Fox News, asking her perfectly legitimate questions about an anecdote that, again, she offered. It's not like people dug into this and revealed this. This was from her book. She put this in a book. She chose to put this in a book. And then when people ask her questions about it, she doesn't handle it particularly well.
That I just want him to win, and that I'll do whatever I can to help.
If you were writing the book today, would you include the dog story?
This is a wonderful book. Did you read the book?
Not yet.
Oh, you should. The first chapter.
But the question stands.
The whole first
chapter. If you were writing it today,
yes, I'm
would
proud
you
of this
include
book.
The dog story?
I'm proud of this book. If you read the first chapter, it's all about when this rioting started. When you turn on the news today and all you see that's happening on these college campuses and what's going on with supporting Hamas and the pro-terrorist organizations, the first chapter in this book covers the riots that happened at the RNC at the White House and how that started with Antifa, and the fact that this president that's in the White House, Joe Biden, will not shut this down, and that they're chanting hatred towards the Jewish people and exterminating them. That's what people should be talking about, Stuart.
Your political
I know that a lot of people are using attacks and trying to take me down because they're scared of me. Listen, I've run 12 campaigns and all I've done is one. I win everything that I do.
Support you on shooting the dog.
I'm honest. Well, I've heard a lot of people.
Nobody.
I've heard a lot of people that say, listen, this was 20 years ago. 50 states.
With emails.
50
we put this on the show.
Have a law on the books.
You're going to be on, and we've been consumed with emails saying, I won't vote for this person. I won't vote for Trump if he puts her in the vice presidential spot.
Well, I'll tell you, Stuart, I'm sorry you're not hearing from real Americans that live on farms and ranches, because if every state has a law in the books that allows for animals that are killing livestock and attacking people to be handled this way.
Okay.
And so I made a decision as a mom, and I'm a grandma.
So that was awful, right? I mean, constant interruptions, visible nervousness, did not want to address the question whatsoever. That was disastrous. And then, of course, to say that real Americans would support her shooting the dog, and people who are not real Americans, not good. I mean, it's obvious, it's easy to see, not just from the anecdote and not just from the lies, but her handling of the situation, why Trump passed her over. One last clip from that exchange with Stuart Varney, again, the future Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security.
You still think that you are in line to be Trump's vice president?
No, it's up to Donald Trump. He's the only person who will decide this. He's the only person who will decide. And I do speak to him.
May I ask what he said to you about being vice president?
No, I never tell anybody my personal conversations with President Trump.
Did the dog story come up in your conversation with Trump?
I talk to President Trump all the time.
About the dog?
About a lot of things. And right now, I tell you what, he is being persecuted in a political witch hunt in this court case. So I'm proud of him about how tough he is and how well he is doing.
Did you bring up the dog?
Yes, enough, Stuart.
With Trump? Did you
this
bring
interview
up the dog
is
with Trump?
ridiculous, what you were doing right now.
So
you need to stop. It is.
Okay.
It is.
We'll
Let's talk about some real topics that Americans care about.
I'm afraid we're out of time.
Oh, well, of course we are.
We do thank you for being with us.
Right.
I know I pressed hard, but that's what people are talking about to this day.
Yeah.
Governor Noem?
Yikes. So again, not someone who can handle pressure or pushback or fact checks or dogs or dog lovers or, I mean, history. It just obviously a profoundly unqualified person, as I expect many of Trump's nominees will be. And again, we're not even a week. No, excuse me. As of today, we are 1 week out from the election. And this is where we are in terms of who Trump is picking for these very important positions. It does not bode well for the next 4 years and potentially beyond that. So there you have it. MAGA Republican governor of South Dakota and notorious killer of dogs, Kristi Noem, will be the Secretary of Homeland Security, according to reporting, unless Donald Trump has a flight of fancy and changes his mind, which I suppose is also possible. But in that case, he'll probably pick someone even worse. So in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.